Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivarathari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivarathari Gopi Jana Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivarathari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivarathari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Vanacharya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivarathari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivarathari Gopi Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jai Nitya Vishnu Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Asto Tarasata Śrīmad His Divine Grace Abhay Charana Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON BBT Founder-Acharya Save the whole world Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitya Vishnu Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Asto Tarasata Śrīmad His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Nama Charja Shaharidas Thakur Ki Premsakaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Sadhguru Bhaktivedanta Ki Sri Radha Krishna Gopala Shamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhana Ki Braj Bhumi Shivindam Ki Navdip Mayapur Dam Ki Purusham Chetra Jagatpuri Dam Ki Ganga Mai Ki Jamuna Mai Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulasi Maharani Ki Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi all glorious somebodies, all glorious somebodies, all glorious somebodies, all glorious, all glorious, let us feed Sri Guru and Sri Garanga, all glorious to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Vishvadaya Krishna Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Ishvarlambanam Chittang Ishvaralambanam Chittang Ishvaralambanam Chittang Kurvato Ananya Radhasa Kurvato Nanya Radhasa Kurvato Nanya Radhasa Ishvara Lambanam Chittang Kurvato Nanya Radhasa Maya Gunamai Rajan Maya Gunamai Rajan Maya Gunamai Rajan Swapnavat Pratyaliyate Pratyaliyata Swapnavat Pratyaliyata Swapnavat Pratyaliyata Mai Gunamai Rajan Swapnavat Pratyaliyata Ishvaralambanam Chittang Kurvato Nanyaradasa Maya Gunamai Rajan Swapnavat Pratyaliyata Ishvaralambanam Chittang Kurvato Nanyaradasa Maya Gunamai Rajan Swapnavat Pratyaliyata Vaishnavas. Ishvara alambanam, completely taking shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Chittam, his consciousness. Guruvata, fixing. Ananya radhasa, for Rantidev, who is undeviating and desired nothing other than to serve the Supreme Lord. Maya, the illusory energy. Gunamayi, consisting of the three modes of nature. Rajan, Maharaj Parikshit. Swapnavat, like a dream. Pratyaliyata, merged. It's very interesting how this verse is explaining that the influence of Maya was just like, it was like a dream. You know, like sometimes you might be having a really heavy dream or a really intense dream, and it seems like so real when it's happening, yeah? But then as soon as you wake up, it's gone. Just like vaporizes in a moment. And so this is what Maya was like for Rantidev. It was just like nothing. It just because of his attachment to Krishna, the influence of Maya just completely evaporated. Srila Prabhupada's translation. O Maharaj Parikshit, because King Rantidev was a pure devotee, always Krishna conscious and free from all material desires, the Lord's illusory energy Maya could not exhibit herself before him. On the contrary, for him Maya entirely vanished, exactly like a dream. This is answering your question from the other day. Yeah? Responsively, please. O Maharaj Parikshit, because King Rantidev was a pure devotee, always Krishna conscious, and free from all material desires, the Lord's illusory energy, Maya, could not exhibit herself before him. On the contrary, for him, Maya entirely vanished, exactly like a dream. So this is a wonderful description here of how we overcome the influence of the material nature by becoming Krishna conscious. It's the only way. As it says, Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva. There is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way. You cannot, and this Krishna makes this point in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. He says, Devesha Gurumaya Mamaya Duratya Mamaya Vijay Bhajante Maya Metam Taranti. This divine energy mind consisting of three modes of material nature is very difficult to overcome. This he's saying to Arjuna, and keep in mind the power of Arjuna. He's a very, very great warrior, one of the greatest on the planet at that time. And he's telling Arjuna it's very difficult. So if it was difficult for Arjuna, what is it for us? But then he says, Mame vijay prapadyante mayam metam tanati. But those who surrender unto me can easily cross beyond it. There's another really nice verse in the 14th chapter of the 10th canto. Samashita ye pada palava padam mahatpadam punyo yasha umarare bahumburi yasa padam 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 yadvi padam nate sham. Which describes how this material world is like a vast ocean. A huge ocean. It's like, just like if you take a flight from here to Los Angeles, you just don't see anything but ocean. No, there's no islands. There's Hawaii right in the middle of it, but that's quite small compared to the size of the ocean. But there's nothing. And if you were dropped into the middle of that ocean, what would be the chance of surviving? What would be the chance of swimming to land? The nearest land is like 8,000-9,000 kilometers away. What's the chance you're going to swim there? There's not much chance, because that's not our nature to be able to swim like that. So it's very difficult to overcome. But then he explains that one who takes shelter of the boat of the lotus feet of Murari, and Murari means the one who killed the Mura demon. The Mura demon was very, very powerful, and Lord Brahma was overwhelmed by this demon, but because he surrendered to Krishna, then very easily he overcame this demon. And so it's explained in this verse that for one who takes shelter of the boat of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Murari, then this vast ocean becomes like Vatsabadam. What's Vatsa? Means a calf. Padam is the footprint. So it's just like, you know, like a calf has a footprint about that big, yeah. And when it stands in the muddy pasturing ground, then some water will seep into that footprint, and who can't cross over that? Anyone, even a small child can step over that without any problem. So this is the clue. How we overcome the influence of the material nature is by taking full shelter of Krishna. And then all these material desires, they just evaporate. Just like, the dew on the grass in the morning. When the sun comes, so everything's really wet. Especially if you're wearing sandals or something, you get wet socks or wet feet or whatever. But as soon as the sun comes up, you see the dew starting to evaporate. All the mist is rising up off the ground. And this is the influence of Maya. Maya is very, very powerful, and we cannot overcome the influence of Maya on our own. It's just not doable. But if we take shelter of Krishna, then very easily we can overcome. And so this is the trick, is to take shelter of Krishna fully in every instance. And just like I was listening to a class the other day, and it's the story about when in the first canto where Arjuna has gone to Dwarka to see Krishna. This is after the Battle of Kurukshetra, and then Krishna has wound up his earthly pastimes. And Arjuna was just immersed in separation, immersed in such intense feelings of separation. Practically he couldn't function. And the only thing he could do was to remember the instructions that Krishna gave him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And this way his mind became peaceful. And so, this is a lesson for us. If we want to at all overcome the influence of material nature, if we at all want to, move forward in our Krishna consciousness, then the only solution is to take shelter of Krishna in all circumstances. It's just like he says in the Gita, he says, always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage to me. Thus you'll come to me without fail. I promise you this. So in all circumstances, take shelter of Krishna. Not sometimes, when things are getting difficult, they take shelter of Krishna. When things are going well, I take shelter of my senses. Not like that. Even like in my daily reading, I just finished reading the 3rd chapter of the 7th canto, and this is a really interesting chapter because Hiranyakashipu is approaching Lord Brahma for benedictions, and he's actually, the chapter before that was chapter 2, where Hiranyaksha was killed, and then so he's preaching to all the relatives of Hiranyaksha. They're all lamenting and stuff, and he's talking about you're not the body, and it's also all about the effect of time and karma and all that. He's preaching like Paka philosophy to all the relatives, and then in the 3rd chapter, after he performs his tapasya, Lord Brahma appears. Then he starts glorifying Lord Brahma as if he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it's Paka philosophy. Yet he had a problem, he understood the Vedas perfectly. You see, same with Ravana. Ravana was a Vedic scholar. But they had a problem. They had a serious problem with their understanding. They were thinking that by their power, they could overcome God. By their power, they could actually kill God. Even though they understood that everything comes from God and He's the creator of the universe and only by Him the sun rises and all this. He understood all that sort of stuff, intellectually. But he didn't realize that actually, as Krishna says in the Gita, Ham savasha prabhu mata savam pavatate, iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhavasaman. Krishna explains that I am the source of all spiritual material worlds. Everything emanates from me. And the wise who perfectly know this, they engage in my service and worship me with all their hearts. So these demons, Hiranyakashipu, Ravana, they knew these things, but not perfectly, because they were thinking, because their perspective was to to try to enjoy themselves in this material world, to try to manipulate the resources of material nature for their gratification. Therefore, when they're put in any situation where they could possibly increase their sense gratification or persecute those who were worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they took opportunity of that. Because thinking themselves supreme, not understanding that my position is Gopibhata Padakamaloi Dasa Dasa Anudasa, not understanding my position as a servant of God, wanting to be the supreme. And that was definitely Hiranyakashipu's position. And even the Devatas, they went to Lord Brahma and they said, he's praying to you because he wants to become you. He wants to take over your position. And that was his intention. But, I think what happened was after a while of offering prayers, he realized he couldn't do that. He realized that Brahma's position was unapproachable for him. So he, tried through trickery to bewilder Lord Brahma. But Lord Brahma wasn't bewildered. He understood that Krishna would take care of these things. And so we see this is the nature of the demon. Is not willing to surrender. Hiranyakashipu, for instance, wanted to be the Lord of the universe. He wanted to control everything. He wanted to dominate everyone. And he did that. He was actually such a powerful demon that he replaced the functions of all the Devatas, and he maintained the whole universe himself by his own prowess, meaning the seasons. It was always springtime. The flowers were always blossoming and fruit was coming, just because out of fear of Hiranyakashipu. Even Yamaraj was fearful of him. Can you imagine that? Yamaraj, the Lord of Death, was fearful of Hiranyakashipu. There's only 3 Devatas that were not affected by him. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. They were not affected by him at all. So he was such a powerful personality. And those 3 Devatas are kind of considered to be in a league of their own. When you look at the Devatas, the other Devatas are quite they have much shorter lives, they're much less powerful, etc. But those 3 personalities are very, very powerful personalities. But still, he controlled the whole functioning of the universe. That was how powerful he was. Yet, even though he was very powerful, even though he's very knowledgeable, this Maya Prahrita Jnana, his knowledge was stolen by illusion. He didn't actually understand his actual position. He didn't understand who the Supreme Personality of Godhead really is. He was just thinking he was another powerful personality. And we see this as a common thing, even with people like Mahatma Gandhi, who's supposed to be such a great personality. He still didn't really understand who Krishna is. He was thinking that Krishna was just a mythological person. And the Bhagavad Gita was like an allegorical story. It wasn't really a factual story. It didn't take place at Kurukshetra 5,000 years ago. He didn't accept that. So, if a great person, they might be the greatest of people, but if they don't accept the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and they don't accept their position of servitude to the Lord, then how great are they? They're actually bewildered by the influence of the modes of material nature. But this is not Rantideva's position. He completely understood his position as a servant of Krishna. He completely understood the position of the Supreme Personality of God as the master of the universe, as the creator of the universe. And therefore, he was unaffected by the material nature. But if we're trying to lord it over material nature, if we're trying to become supreme, then this gives Maya this sort of crack to get in. It's like whereas Rantideva, you see there's so many amazing examples in the scriptures of great devotees who, even though they had plenty of opportunities, you look at Thakur Haridas, who was it, Ramachandra Khan, I think, sent that prostitute to him to try to allure him from the devotional path. No chance. He had no interest whatsoever. And it's very interesting because he was explaining to the prostitute, just surely I'll satisfy your desires. Just sit down here. I have a vow. I have to finish my vow of chanting, a certain amount of number of names. And then as soon as I finish, surely I will satisfy your desire. So Thakur Haridas is sitting and chanting. And he comes to the end of the day and says, look, I haven't finished my vow, so please come back tomorrow and surely I'll satisfy you. But she's sitting there hearing a pure unalloyed devotee chant the holy name, the pure holy name. It's entering her ear and it's going to her heart. So after 3 days, she became so purified, she revealed what her intention was to Thakur Haridas. He said, look, I already knew that. I only stayed here to purify you. So this is the nature of a great personality, is that they're so pure, they're so powerful that whoever they come into contact with, they also purify that personality rather than the opposite happening. There's a statement, I think it's the 21st chapter of the 11th canto, it's describing different means of purifying types of things, especially in deity worship. And it mentions that when something is very powerful, something is very great, it cannot be contaminated by something which is very small. Just like, if you, for instance, you have a vast body of water and a dead body falls into, a big lake or Port Phillip Bay, and you go down to Port, like I went for a walk a few days ago, and there's a few puffer fish down there on the bank, on the shore, floating in the water. So a dead body is something that's very contaminated. And if we come into contact with a dead body, we're considered we've become impure, we have to bathe. But because of the vastness of the ocean, the power of the ocean, it's not affected by those small dead fish there. So in the same way, you can see with these great devotees like Ranti Dev or Thakur Haridas or Prahlad Maharaj or Dhruva Maharaj, many, many wonderful, powerful Vaishnavas, even though they may come into contact with what would normally be considered contaminating influences, they're not affected by it because their bhakti is so great, is so powerful. And this is how we also become freed from the influence of the most material nature, is by the practice of this, what they call it, ananya cetasa, this, or as it here says, ananya radhasa, this like really focused, determined devotional service, that nothing will sway us from this path of bhakti. And this is why personalities like Ranti Dev were successful, because nothing could sway him. Even though he might have been presented with so many temptations, Thakur Haridas, presented with so many different temptations and obstacles. He was whipped in 22 different marketplaces. And their intention was to get him to give up his devotional service. But he wouldn't give it up. And he was able to endure the beating, and it didn't affect him. And actually, there's a description in the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam where later on, when they were doing the, I think it was called the Beta Kirtan pastimes, where Lord Chaitanya actually revealed to Thakur Haridas that he himself took the beating to protect his devotee. And we see this is the case. Is Krishna, he says to Arjuna, he says, you declare it boldly, my devotee will never perish. And Krishna also explains, he says, to those who worship in his exclusive devotion, meditating, I preserve what they have and I carry what they lack. So Krishna becomes very much indebted, and even to the point where he becomes controlled by these greatly advanced devotees because of love. And you see, it's just like anyone who's in a loving relationship, even though sometimes it may be that you don't want to do something, you don't want to go somewhere or whatever, but the one you're in the loving relationship with does, they want to do that, and you just give in without even putting up a fight. Prabhupada sometimes would talk about in a married relationship how the wife would come and take all the money out of the husband's wallet, just like a pickpocket. And the husband would joke, oh, you've taken all my money. He would joke affectionately. But if someone on the street does that, and they take your wallet, they take the money, you beat them. So because of this loving affection, we become controlled, even though in other circumstances that would seem to be quite adverse. Adverse. So you can see how love controls the living entity. And it's just like, with children, you can see how the parents are, actually, the parents, when they get married, they're thinking that, the husband's often thinking that he's the proprietor of the household, but actually it's the children. Everything the children want, they get. They start to cry. Okay, whatever, So you can see how we become controlled by love. Krishna's the same. This quality actually comes from Krishna, because when the devotees are willing to give up everything for his pleasure, he becomes controlled by that. And this is exactly what Rantidev did. He gave up everything for the satisfaction of Krishna. And he could have had, he's a great personality, a great king. He could have had anything. He had control over the whole planet, the whole universe, basically. And yet he was willing to sacrifice all that for the pleasure of Krishna. And this is how you become a great devotee. Be willing to sacrifice everything. You may have a little, you may have a lot, but be willing to sacrifice everything for the pleasure of Krishna. And this is how we become a great personality. Srila Prabhupada's purport. As it is said, Krishna Shriya Samamaya Haya Andakara, Yahan Krishna Tahan Nahi Maya Adhikara. Just as there is no chance that darkness can exist in the sunshine, in a pure Krishna conscious person, there is no existence of Maya. So this is a really important, it's actually the letterhead of the Bhakti Godhead magazine. This, where there is light, there is no darkness. Where there is God, there is no nescience. This is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And so this is the fact, is if we take shelter of Krishna fully, there's no possibility that Maya can enter into that situation. It just doesn't happen. It can't happen. Because Maya is described how Maya stands in the shadow of Krishna. She stands behind Krishna. Vyasadeva saw this when he achieved realization. He saw how Maya was standing there in the shadow of Krishna. So if you want to turn your back on Krishna, Maya's there straight away. But if you always, or if we always take shelter of Krishna, then Maya will never have any influence on us at all. So this is the secret, is to, sometimes we feel that or experience how desires start to come in. And we feel like, I'd like to do this, whatever it is, and if at that moment we can sincerely take shelter of Krishna, not just lip service, but sincerely take shelter of Krishna. Pray to Krishna with all our heart. Please protect me. I'm feeling weakness. I'm feeling I'm being attacked, whatever. Please protect me. Prabhupada, I remember Jayadvaita Maharaj explained one time that Prabhupada had told them that if you're experiencing some difficulty in devotional service, you go before Sri Sri Gaura and you pray, my dear sir, this is the problem. It is like this, it is like that. Please help. And he will help. There's a nice verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I can't remember the Bengali right now, but basically what it's saying is that things that are very difficult to do become easy to execute if one somehow or other remembers Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But even the easiest things become very difficult if we forget him. So this is the safest way to navigate through this material world, is just take shelter of Krishna, take shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at every step of our lives. Because it's a very difficult place. The material world is a very, very difficult place, and it's getting more and more difficult every day. So just take shelter of Krishna and you'll find it very, very easy. The Lord himself says in Bhagavad Gita 7:14, Devesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mameva jay prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. If one wants to be freed from the influence of Maya, the illusory energy, one must become Krishna conscious and always keep Krishna prominent within the core of his heart. And it's a really interesting concept, this. One of the names of Krishna is Vasudeva. And when the heart becomes pure, this is called Vasudeva Sattva. It means that the heart then becomes a place where Vasudeva can reside. It's not an accident that Krishna's father's name was Vasudeva also, because his heart was so pure that Krishna came and resided in his heart. Therefore, Krishna appeared through him in this material world. So this is, when the heart becomes pure, the lotus of the heart becomes pure, then Krishna will come and reside. He's already there, but it's not so evident to us. But when our hearts become pure, then Krishna's presence will be evident to us and it will be evident to others. Others will see that. In the Bhagavad Gita 9:34, the Lord advises the one always think of him. Manmana bhava bhakto majjaji mam naraskuru. In this way, by always being Krishna-minded or Krishna-conscious, one can surpass the influence of Maya. Mayam etam tarantite. Because Rantidev was Krishna-conscious, he was not under the influence of the illusory energy. The word swapna is significant in this connection. Does anyone know what swapna means? Dreams, yeah, it means dreams. Yeah. Because in this material world, the mind is absorbed in materialistic activities. When one is asleep, many contradictory activities appear in one's dreams. So, sometimes, I don't know if you've had this experience, but I've had the experience sometimes I have the craziest dreams. And I've got no idea where they're coming from, but it's just like something just comes up from I don't know where, and it's just like madness. And when the dreams are occurring, it seems so real. And that's what this material nature is like. It seems, the experience we're having here seems so real. But when we become Krishna conscious, when we actually give up affection for this material nature, we realize it's just all illusory, it's temporary. It comes and it goes. When one awakens, however, these activities automatically merge into the mind. Similarly, as long as one is under the influence of the material energy, he makes many plans and schemes. But when one is Krishna conscious, such dreamlike plans automatically disappear. And so this is the real essence of the instruction here from this verse, is that if we're absorbed in trying to, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, exploit the resources of material nature, then what ultimately happens is we become controlled by that nature. Because it's so overwhelmingly powerful, we cannot control matter. When I was in Italy recently, I was at the Villa Vrindavan for the European Leaders meeting, and there was several sannyasis there. There was Bhaktivedanta Maharaj, and there was Prabhupada Maharaj, and Vishakha Maharaj was there also from the manor. And I think it was Bhaktivedanta Maharaj. He was giving class, and he was talking about how there was some seminar, like a big sort of commercial seminar happening in some center in Berlin, and it was being advertised as man, masters of the universe, or some title like that. And then so people were flying in from all around the world, to discuss how man is dominating and controlling nature. And then what happened was there was this massive rain event, and so the airport was closed because of the rain. So then they go to this conference, and there's a sign, cancelled due to unforeseen circumstances. So man is the master of material nature, yet he can't even stop it raining. So this is the illusions. We think, foolishly, we think that we're actually the controller and the enjoyer. But actually we're not. We're controlled and we're enjoyed. This is our actual position. And when we can realize our actual position, stop trying to manipulate material nature, stop trying to be the controller, stop trying to be the enjoyer. Because Krishna explains in the Gita, in the 5th chapter, the end of the 5th chapter, he says, Bhaktarangakatapasam, Sarvalokmaheshwaram, Sudharam, Sarvabhutamam, Gyatvam, Mam Shantimrishti. He says, Bhaktarangakatapasam. That person understands that I am the enjoyer of all sacrifices, all austerities. Sarvalokmaheshwaram. And I am the proprietor of all the planets, all the devatas, everyone on the planet. So I'm the proprietor. Not just the planet, but also everyone on the planet. And then Sudhiram, Sarvabhutanam. This word surit means like, I heard a class a while ago, Prabhupada was explaining this word surit in greater detail. And he was explaining how this surit means that the person is such a well-wishing friend, they will put your interest before their interest. And this is Krishna's nature. He'll put your interest, if you surrender to him, he'll put your interest before his interest. And this means this is the supreme well-wishing friend. He actually understands what is best for you and delivers that if you take shot of him. And then Krishna explains this, Gyat Famam Shantim Richiti. If someone understands, he says, knowing this, knowing me like this, Shantim Richiti, one attains peace. Because if we don't understand Krishna's position in this world, we'll never know peace. If we don't understand our own position, we'll never know peace. We'll always be driven by the modes of material nature. We'll always be driven by the senses, because the senses are trying to contact the modes of nature. The senses are trying to enjoy and manipulate and dominate the modes of nature, the material nature. And so if we can come to this point through cultivation of knowledge, through cultivation of detachment, through cultivation of devotion, then we'll actually know peace, because we'll let go of this tendency to try to enjoy the material world. And so this is a very interesting pastime. And Ranti Dev set such a wonderful example of devotional service. And one of the important messages or important points we find in these pastimes in the Bhagavatam is it's giving us an example. Because, if you just look at, for instance, where we're situated, and as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he says, in all the Vedas there's only three things really: Sambandha, Avidaya, Prayojana. So Sambandha means we look where we're situated, okay? In terms of my kind of interaction with material nature, my interaction with Krishna, my interaction with others, etc. We understand where we're situated. And then if we know what the prayojana is, the goal, it seems so far away. It seems practically unachievable. Yeah? And on your own it is. It says, what's that? Matina Krishna Parato Satova, Mipo Mito Griha Pratanam. It's like for persons who are, trying to exploit this material nature, Matina Krishna, they can never know Krishna. Parato Svatova, not by their own endeavor, or by the help of others, or by a combination of both. Because their focus is to try to enjoy this material world. That's what they're about. It's like whatever I can milk out of this material existence, that's what I want. And you look at this whole materialistic society, that's what it's all about. It's just to try to suck as much enjoyment as they can out of this material nature. And it's quite limited what you can actually enjoy from material nature. And because they have this intention, then they can never actually understand who they are, who God is, and the material nature. They don't understand any of this stuff. They don't understand that, as I was saying before, Krishna says in the Gita, that I am the source of all spiritual material worlds. So we understand that this is Krishna's material nature. This is Krishna's property. I am Krishna's property. If one understands Vedic conclusion. This is the position of the living entity. I am Krishna's servant. Jivera Suproi, Krishnera Nityadas. Krishnera Tatasta Shakti, Veda Ved Prakash. That the jiva's position, because he's of the marginal position, actually, the jiva's position, in essence, is the same as Krishna's, fully transcendental. But because of contact with material nature, we take a marginal position. There's only the influence of material nature. If you give up this influence of material nature, then matter cannot affect you, material desires cannot affect you. But we're reluctant to give it up, because we think that this is the way I find happiness in this material world. This is the illusion. There is no happiness in this material world. It's all just so temporary and short-lived. Yet, because we're somewhat reluctant due to our not really accepting the words of the scriptures, not really accepting the words of the spiritual master, the scriptures tell us, that the happiness, like the happiness in the spiritual world is like a Brahmanda compared to the drop of happiness we experience in this material world. But we don't accept descriptions like that. We think, no, everything here is good. I'm having a great time, isn't it? You ask people, especially in countries like Australia, you ask people, doing great, thanks a lot, you're having a great time. How's it going? Awesome. Isn't it? But actually, they're completely bewildered about who they are And they don't realize that because they're covered by ignorance. And it's only through the process of Krishna consciousness, it's only through coming into contact with an advanced devotee, with someone who's an unalloyed servant of Krishna, that one can actually come to this point. And Rupa Goswami explains this in the Nectar of Devotion, that one can only come to the practice of bhakti through the contact of a pure devotee. And so this is why Srila Prabhupada's books are so important, because this gives opportunities to people to come into contact with a pure devotee. They can read Prabhupada's books and actually understand. Okay, I'll finish there. Any questions at all? Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for a nice class. In this material world, being a Grihastha, there are so many anxieties. You have to maintain a job, you have to maintain a home, you have to maintain all those things. And given the environment, it takes a lot of your time, and it also infuses a lot of material anxieties. This may happen, that may happen, fear of unknown, uncertainty, whether today I have a job, tomorrow if not, just so on and so forth. So, how to stay Krishna conscious during those challenges?
Yeah. The only certainty in this material world is birth, death, old age and disease. That's it. You're guaranteed those things will happen. Nothing else is guaranteed. Just due to karma, due to guna, these other things will happen. So just understand that, we're not pessimists. We're very optimistic because we understand if we take shelter of Krishna, we'll achieve the supreme destination. But don't be optimistic about this material world. You're destined to suffer if you try to enjoy the material world. That's just the nature. It's just like, if you stick your finger into a fan that's going around, what's going to happen? Your finger will get hurt. That's just intelligence. You just know that. But because people are covered by ignorance, they don't realize the nature of this material world. So just accept that uncertainty, insecurity, that's what happens when I take shelter of material nature. Even if you're very, very rich people, sometimes you see very rich people, they lose everything overnight. The stock market crashes or whatever, they just lose everything overnight. Or, they die of some disease or whatever. That's just the nature of this material world. There's a really interesting verse in the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which for me is like a Grihastha verse. Yeah? Krishna says, Yad karoshi, yadasnashi, yadjahosi dashi, yatapashashi kuntai, tad karushama marapan. He says, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, you do that as son of Kunti, as an offering to me. So this is the key. Like, okay, you're working at your job. What's your motivation there? What should be your motivation there? Oftentimes the motivation is just to make money so I can live. No, the motivation needs to be, I have a job so I can maintain my devotee family. Then you connect it with Krishna. Just connect everything with Krishna. And then whatever happens in life, it doesn't really matter so much because you're just doing it for Krishna. So if he desires that I'm wealthy, great, thank you, Krishna. If he desires that I have to live in a very simple circumstance, thank you, Krishna. Whatever comes, just see it as the mercy of Krishna. But when we see ourselves as the doer, we think, I have to get a job, I have to have job security, because it's all focused on me. Even though we're devotees, we still have this mentality. So the more we can focus our life around Krishna, the more peaceful we become. As Krishna says, Gyatmamam shantim richati. Knowing me, you achieve peace. Yeah? That's the only way to do it. Otherwise, there's going to be constant anxiety. Children getting educated, they grow up, they get married, what are they going to turn out like? They're going to become drug addicts, they're going to be whatever, It's a constant anxiety for people, But if we can take shelter of Krishna in any circumstance, just like there's that really interesting, saying in the beginning of that really interesting pastime of Arjuna when he when he went to Dwarka and he was charged with bringing the queens back to safety, bringing back to Hastinapur. But he was accosted on the way by some cowherd, well, what appeared to be cowherd men, and they took the queens from him. And he couldn't, even though he was the mighty, powerful warrior, and they were just cowherd men, he was powerless to do anything. And he understood that when I was on the battle of Kurukshetra, I was killing the greatest warriors in the world, even Bhishma. He brought about the demise of Bhishma. And he realized this was all due to the mercy of Krishna. And then by remembering Krishna's instructions, he became peaceful. So this is a lesson for us also, is the only way you can become peaceful in this material world is to take shelter of Krishna. If you try to take shelter of material nature, you'll be in constant anxiety. Because it's always changing, it's always changing. The whole thing's constantly in flux, as is the mind. The mind is constantly in flux, constantly just, the turnings, the viroda, the turnings of the mind. It never stops. But if you take shelter of Krishna, then you easily cross beyond this. It's the only solution for anything, is to take shelter of Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for the nice class.
Did this purport answer your question from the other day?
Yeah,
That's
little
good
bit.
purport, huh?
Prabhu, you said how materialists, they cannot understand Krishna because they're so engrossed in themselves. But I was hearing one lecture by Srila Prabhupada, and he was mentioning how can we understand Krishna, because he's so unlimited, he's inconceivable, and Krishna himself cannot understand himself. So how is that possible? Why can't Krishna understand himself?
How is it possible that Krishna can't understand himself? Because he's unlimited. I mean, of course, even we can understand his nature, but because we're finite and he's infinite, then we can never really fully understand Krishna. We can understand him to a certain percent, but not fully. Meaning we can understand his nature, we can understand how to serve him, we can understand how to please him. But it's just like the scientists, that they might be trying to find out every detail about a particular science, and maybe they can find it out. And even you see there's a statement in the scriptures that said that even if you could count all the atoms in the universe, and how many atoms are in the universe? There's lots. Still, you could not understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because we're limited. Whereas Krishna is unlimited. And, of course Krishna understands his own nature, of course he understands his potencies, but he's always marveled at how his potencies act. And we see in the form of Anantashesh, he has thousands of hoods and he's chanting the glories of the Lord, but he never reaches the end because they're unlimited. There's no limit to it. So we don't try to understand, because the material tendency is to be able to measure things. Everything has this dimension. Therefore, I can put it in a box, I feel peaceful now. I can understand this. That's why people are often quite challenged when it comes to God, because you cannot do that. You cannot quantify God. He's unlimited. How can you quantify something that's unlimited, something that's constantly expanding? We don't have anything in our experience of something that's constantly. Like even, I was talking about the example of the Pacific Ocean before. It's very vast. It'll take you 17 hours to fly from here to Los Angeles at 900 kilometers an hour, to give you an idea of how far it is. But it's finite, even though it seems very, very gigantic. Or if you have an ant comes up to your toe, right? You're so big in comparison to the ant, it doesn't even realize that there's another being there. It just thinks there's a mountain or something. And then it moves, and it freaks it out. So because our senses are limited, when we come upon something that's much bigger than us, we become bewildered and we think, oh, this is unlimited. But it's not. Everything within this material world is finite. But in the spiritual world, Krishna is infinite. There's no limit to Krishna. So in that sense, he can't be understood. But you can still understand Krishna. He says, those who know me. And we know Krishna through the process of bhakti, but we know him in the sense that, he's my master, I'm his servant. Is that okay? Anything else? Yes, bro.
So, I've on my spiritual journey so far, I've walked away from everything. So, letting go a lot of attachments towards, I should say, possessions and shelter and all of that stuff. And yet, my biggest problem right now is surrendering to God, to Krishna. And every time that I get so very close, fear just grabs me and pulls me back down.
Yeah.
And it's like, it feels like that no matter what I try to do, like in practices and prayers and in chants, that it feels like I'm going nowhere, and that so I guess my question is, how do I come to this?
Yeah. Krishna explains in the 4th chapter of the Gita, he says, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tang sataiva bhajamiham mama manuvatante manusha partashavat. He says that as they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. So this is the first thing we need to understand, that it's reciprocal. And Prabhupada's father would explain to him that for every step you take towards God, he'll take 10 steps towards you. So don't think that you're not making progress. Because it's just like, if you look at a child every day, right? You have a child starts off this big, grows, right? But if you look at it every day, you don't notice the difference. But if you see a child, and I remember there's this young girl in Poland years ago, Amrita Sara, and I hadn't seen her for about 2 years, and I said, "Oh, you've grown so much," and she was quite smart, that little girl. She said, "It's only natural, isn't it?" I was quite, okay. But the point is that I hadn't seen her for 2 years, and she'd grown so much in that point. But the parents watching every day wouldn't notice that she's growing. So it's the same for us in the process of bhakti. It may seem like we're going nowhere, but if 5 years down the track you look back and you think, wow, I was thinking I was really advanced back then, but now I'm realizing different. So it's a process. It's a gradual process, and it takes time. It takes time. We may feel that we've given up all attachments, but as we become more purified and as we gain more knowledge, we realize there's so many attachments. Yeah. And we may have given up gross attachments like meat eating, intoxication, illicit sex, and gambling, but there's so many subtle attachments and more subtle attachments that these things hold us back. So reading is really important, especially read Srila Prabhupada's books, Bhagavad Gita. It's a really good place to start, because it helps. Because this is what Krishna is explaining to Arjuna, because Arjuna is manifesting this attachment to his family, even though he's presenting himself as being knowledgeable in the Vedic science. Krishna basically says, actually, you're a fool. You don't know what you're talking about. And this is a lesson for all of us, because we're fools. We think we're very, very knowledgeable. We think we're very wise and learned. But actually, the experience of Krishna consciousness is completely foreign to anything we know, because we only deal with matter. And Krishna consciousness and Krishna himself is completely transcendental. Krishna is beyond anything you can know or experience in this material world. There's nobody like Krishna. But through the process of bhakti, you can experience that. So just keep at it. Read, chant, come hear the classes, attend kirtan, take Krishna Prasad. All these things will act to purify the heart. Because the heart, we've been here in this material world for lifetimes, countless lifetimes. You cannot imagine how long you've been here in the material world. It's incalculable. So many billions of lifetimes we've been here since the dawn of creation, which is that's beyond time. So you can't figure out how long it is. Yet through the process of Krishna consciousness, in one lifetime, you can purify your heart and go back to Godhead. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it, but it just takes determination. And your determination will be tested. Your mettle will be tested. That's just the nature, because it's just like you're trying to give up involvement with matter or material nature, and she's testing you out, saying, really? This is really what you want to do? So just be patient, be determined, keep going.
Okay.
It's the only solution. Okay?
Krishna.
Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveta Bhaktivedanta ki, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram